I stood in the parking lot of Henderson and Sons law firm, watching through the second-floor window as my sister-in-law's face went from confident to pale. The manila envelope in the lawyer's hands contained 32 pages that were about to change everything. I'm 64 years old, and 3 weeks ago, I never thought I'd be here. 3 weeks ago, I was standing beside my younger brother's casket. The rain had stopped by the time we lowered James into the ground. I remember that. I remember thinking it was strange how the sun came out right at the end, like some kind of cosmic joke. My brother was 48 when the heart attack took him. 48. He was supposed to outlive me. I'm the older one, the one with the bad knee and the high blood pressure. But life doesn't follow scripts. Diane stood on the other side of the grave, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue that never quite touched her makeup. My brother's widow. 15 years they'd been married. She wore a black dress that probably cost more than my monthly pension, and her heels kept sinking into the soft cemetery ground. I watched her more than I watched the casket, and I hated myself for it. Your brother just died, Robert, I kept thinking. Show some respect. But something in my gut wouldn't let it go. After the service, people came back to my house. Not Diane's house, not the suburban 3-bedroom with the 2-car garage where she and James had lived. My house, the old Craftsman on Oakwood Street that my father built with his own hands in 1967. The house where James and I grew up, where we learned to ride bikes in the driveway, where we built that tree house that's still standing in the backyard oak. Diane showed up an hour late, made a lap around the living room, accepting condolences, then found me in the kitchen. We need to talk, she said. Not, how are you holding up? Not, thank you for hosting. Just, we need to talk, like we were about to negotiate a business deal. Now, I said. I was trying to figure out how to arrange cold cuts on a platter. My wife Sarah died 6 years ago, and I never did get the hang of hosting. It's about the property. I set down the turkey slices. What property? The workshop. The building on 4th Street. She said it like I was supposed to know exactly what she meant. James's half belongs to me now. The workshop. Our father's old auto repair shop. 3,000 square feet of concrete floors and steel beams and memories. Dad ran that place for 40 years before the arthritis got so bad he couldn't hold a wrench anymore. When he died in 2003, he left it to both of us, 50-50. James and I had been running it together ever since, though running it is generous. I used it as my personal garage and workshop. James mostly just kept his name on the deed. Diane, I said slowly, can we maybe talk about this later? After? I've already talked to a real estate agent. She pulled out her phone, started scrolling. The property's worth at least $600,000. Commercial zoning, great location. With the right buyer, maybe $750,000. That's $375,000 for me. $375,000 for you. I'm willing to accept a forced sale. We list it next month. I just stared at her. My brother had been in the ground for exactly 4 hours. I have expenses, Robert. The funeral wasn't cheap. And James had life insurance, but it's not as much as I thought. I need liquidity. That building, I said, and my voice came out harder than I meant it to, was our father's. James and I. James is dead, she said it flat, matter of fact. And I'm his widow. That makes his half mine. I've already consulted with my lawyer. Something in my chest went tight. You consulted with a lawyer? When? Last week. Last week. When James was still alive. When he was still in the hospital, sedated, with tubes running in and out of him. She'd been planning this while he was dying. I didn't trust myself to speak. I just nodded and turned back to the cold cuts. She left 20 minutes later. Didn't say goodbye to anyone. Just walked out to her white Mercedes and drove off. My nephew, Ben, James's son from his first marriage, found me still standing in the kitchen. Uncle Rob? He's 26 now, working construction in Columbus. You okay?" "Yeah," I lied. "Yeah, I'm fine." But I wasn't fine. The next morning, Diane called me at 7 a.m. I was in the middle of making coffee, still in my bathrobe. "I need access to the workshop," she said. "No greeting, no preamble." "For what?" "To inventory what's inside. For the appraisal, my realtor wants photos by Friday." "Diane, I'm not selling." She laughed. Actually laughed. "You don't have a choice, Robert. I own half. I can force a partition sale. My lawyer already explained this." "Then let your lawyer explain it to my lawyer." "You don't have a lawyer," she said. "You're a retired mailman living on a pension. You can't afford a lawyer." She hung up. I sat at my kitchen table for an hour, just staring at my coffee while it went cold. She was right about one thing. I was a retired mailman, 37 years with the Postal Service, walking the same routes through rain and snow and 100-degree summers. I lived in a house I inherited. I drove a 2008 Ford Ranger with 190,000 miles on it. My idea of a fancy dinner was Applebee's on a Friday night, but she was wrong about the lawyer. I called Ben that afternoon. "I need you to help me find something." "Find what?" "A file box. Blue plastic. About this big. Should be in the workshop, somewhere in the office area. It's got a bunch of old papers from when Dad died." "What kind of papers?" "Trust me, kid. Just help me find it." We drove to the workshop together. It's in the old industrial part of town, sandwiched between a plumbing supply store and a vacant lot where the textile mill used to be. The building's nothing fancy, just cinder blocks and corrugated metal. But it's solid. My dad built things to last. Inside, it still smelled like motor oil and WD-40. My tools hung on pegboards along the walls. James's old workbench sat in the corner, covered in dust. We hadn't changed much since Dad died. It took us 40 minutes to find the box. It was exactly where I thought it'd be. Bottom shelf of the metal storage rack in the back office, behind a stack of ancient Motor Trend magazines. I opened it right there on the floor. Ben watched me rifle through old tax returns, inspection certificates, my father's handwritten ledgers, and then I found it. A manila folder. Inside, 3 documents. The first was a quitclaim deed, dated the 14th of September, 2004. James Aaron Mitchell hereby transfers all rights, title, and interest in the property located at 847 4th Street to Robert William Mitchell. James's signature at the bottom, notarized. The second document was a cashier's check receipt, $85,000, paid from Robert W. Mitchell to James A. Mitchell. The memo line read, "Buyout, 4th Street property." The third was a letter in James's handwriting. "Rob, here's the deed like we talked about. Thanks for buying me out. I know you'll take care of the place. J." Ben looked at the papers, then at me. "Uncle Rob, what is this?" "Insurance," I said. 20 years ago, James had wanted out. He'd just married his first wife, was buying a house, needed cash. We'd agreed. I'd buy his half of the workshop. 85,000 was all I had in savings, but it was fair market value at the time. We'd done it informal, just between brothers. I'd filed the quitclaim deed with the county, made it official, but never talked about it much. James never needed to know the details of property ownership. He trusted me to handle it. And then James had remarried, to Diane, and apparently never told her about the sale. I made copies of everything the next day. Then I called a real estate lawyer named Christine Morales, recommended by a guy I used to deliver mail to. She agreed to see me that afternoon. Her office was in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax prep place. Not fancy, but her paralegal was efficient, and she had me in her office in under 5 minutes. I laid out the documents. She studied them for maybe 2 minutes, then looked up at me. "Mr. Mitchell, do you understand what you have here?" "I think so." "You're the sole owner of this property. Have been since 2004. Your brother sold you his interest 20 years ago." "That's what I thought." Does his widow know? No, ma'am. She thinks she inherited half. Christine Morales leaned back in her chair. And she's threatening a forced sale? Already got a realtor? Then she's in for a surprise. She pulled out a legal pad. Here's what we're going to do. The next week, Diane called me every other day. Each call was the same. Demands for access to the property, threats about her lawyer, insistence that I was being unreasonable. I didn't argue. I just said, "Talk to my lawyer," and gave her Christine's number. Diane left 3 voicemails for Christine. Christine didn't return them. On Thursday, Diane showed up at the workshop with her realtor, a guy in his 30s wearing too much cologne and a blazer with leather elbow patches. I was inside, working on an old Triumph motorcycle I'd been restoring. The bell over the door chimed when they walked in. "Robert," Diane said, "this is Kevin Brandt. He's going to be listing the property." Kevin stuck out his hand. I didn't take it. "Ma'am," I said to Diane, "you need to leave." "Excuse me? This is private property. You're trespassing." Kevin glanced at Diane. "I thought you said you owned half?" "I do own half," Diane snapped. "Robert's just being difficult." "No, ma'am," I said. "You don't own anything. And unless you want me to call the sheriff, you'll leave. Now." Kevin backed toward the door. Diane stood her ground for another 10 seconds, her face going red, then turned and marched out. Kevin scrambled after her. I watched through the window as they argued in the parking lot. Kevin kept gesturing at his phone. Diane kept pointing back at the building. Finally, they got in their separate cars and left. Christine called me an hour later. She just called my office, screaming, threatened to sue for harassment. "What'd you tell her?" "That she's welcome to try. I also told her we have documentation proving you're the sole owner, and that if she continues to make claims on the property, we'll pursue legal action for slander of title." "What'd she say?" "She hung up on me. I thought that might be the end of it. I was wrong." 2 days later, I got a certified letter from a law firm in Cleveland. Baxter and Lowe, attorneys at law. 3 pages of legal jargon basically saying that Diane Mitchell, as surviving spouse of James Aaron Mitchell, was asserting her claim to 50% ownership of the property at 847 4th Street and demanding I cease and desist from interfering with her rights. Christine read it over the phone. "This is aggressive. What do we do?" We respond, "With your quitclaim deed, the canceled check, and a very polite letter explaining that Mrs. Mitchell is mistaken." "That's it?" "That's it. The documents speak for themselves." She drafted the response that afternoon. I drove to her office, signed it, and she sent it off certified mail, return receipt requested. Diane's lawyer received it on a Tuesday. By Thursday, I got another letter. This one was shorter. It demanded that I produce evidence of the alleged transfer, implied that the documents might be fraudulent, and threatened litigation if I didn't agree to mediation. "Fraudulent?" I said to Christine. "She's saying I forged my brother's signature? She's desperate. This is what desperate looks like. So what happens now? Now we take her to court if we have to. But honestly, Robert, I don't think it'll get that far. Once her lawyer actually reviews the documents, the real ones, filed with the county, he'll advise her to drop it. And if he doesn't, then we show up with our evidence and let a judge tell her she's wrong." But Diane wasn't done. The following week, Ben called me at 11 at night. "Uncle Rob, you need to see this." "See what?" "Facebook. Diane posted about you." I don't do social media, but Ben read it to me over the phone. It was a long post, full of emojis and capital letters. The gist was that her cruel, greedy brother-in-law was trying to steal her inheritance, that I was taking advantage of her grief, that I'd never liked her, and was using her husband's death to push her out of what was rightfully hers. She tagged half of James's old friends. People were commenting, taking her side. "She's making you sound like a monster," Ben said. "Let her talk." "Uncle Rob." "Ben, the truth is, in the paperwork, let her embarrass herself. But it stung. I won't lie about that. Christine called the next morning. I saw the Facebook post. Yeah, we could pursue defamation, but honestly, it's not worth it. Social media rants rarely hold up in court, and it just makes you look petty. So I do nothing? You let the legal system do its job. That afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Mitchell, this is Douglas Baxter, from Baxter & Lowe, Diane's lawyer. Yeah? I've reviewed the documents your attorney sent over, the quitclaim deed, the payment receipt, and there was a long pause. Mr. Mitchell, I need to ask you directly. Are these documents authentic? Yes, sir. And they were filed with the county recorder? September 2004. You can check. Another pause. I did check. They're on file. Then I guess we're done here. Mr. Mitchell, my client insists. Your client is wrong, and if she keeps pushing this, she's going to look foolish in front of a judge. He sighed. I'm going to advise her to drop the claim. That'd be smart. He hung up. I waited for the other shoe to drop. It took 3 days. Christine called me on a Saturday morning. She's backing off. What? Her lawyer sent a letter. They're withdrawing the claim. No apology, no acknowledgement they were wrong. Just a formal withdrawal. I sat down at my kitchen table. It's over? It's over. You're in the clear. I should have felt relieved, vindicated, but mostly I just felt tired. Thanks, Christine. You did the right thing, Robert, standing your ground. I hung up and stared out the window at the backyard, the old oak tree, the tree house James and I built when we were kids. The wooden planks were rotting now, dangerous. I'd been meaning to tear it down for years. Ben came by that afternoon. We drove to the workshop together. Didn't say much. Inside, I showed him the motorcycle I'd been working on. A 1972 Triumph Bonneville, British racing green. It had been sitting in pieces for 15 years. Dad and I were going to restore this together, I said. Your grandfather, I mean. He bought it at an estate sale in 1998. Said it'd be our retirement project. It's beautiful. It's a mess. But yeah, it could be. We worked on it for a few hours, not talking much, just turning wrenches, cleaning parts. My phone buzzed around 4, a text from a number I didn't recognize. You win. Hope you're happy. Diane. I didn't respond. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about James, about the last conversation we'd had. 2 days before the heart attack, he'd called me about some fantasy football trade. We'd argued about quarterbacks for 20 minutes and then hung up laughing. I didn't tell him I loved him. Didn't think I needed to. Brothers don't say that stuff, right? Except now, I'd never get another chance. I got up around 2 a.m., made myself tea, sat at the kitchen table. The workshop documents were still in the folder on the counter. I picked up James's letter from 2004. Thanks for buying me out. I know you'll take care of the place. Jay, he'd trusted me. With the workshop, with our father's legacy, and I'd kept that promise. 20 years. Maintaining the building, paying the property taxes, keeping it standing, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd failed him somehow. That if I'd been a better brother, if I'd stayed closer, maybe I'd have seen the heart attack coming. Maybe I'd have made him go to the doctor sooner, eat better, stress less. Maybe he'd still be here. I called Ben the next morning. You want the workshop? What? The building. I'm getting old. My knee's shot. My back's not what it used to be. I don't need 3,000 square feet. But you're young. You work construction. You could use a space like that. It's yours if you want it. Silence on the other end. Then, Uncle Rob, I can't afford. I'm not selling it to you. I'm giving it to you. Well, technically, I'll transfer it when I die. Put it in my will. But you can use it now. Move your tools in, work on projects, whatever you need. Why? Because your dad would have wanted you to have it. And because family's supposed to take care of family. He came over that afternoon. We drew up a simple agreement, nothing legal yet, just a handshake deal that I'd update my will, put him down as the heir to the property. He looked at the papers with wet eyes. He'd be proud of you, Ben said. My dad, for fighting for this. I didn't fight for the building, I said. I fought for what it represents. Your grandfather's work, your dad's memory, the idea that some things aren't for sale. We went to the workshop together. I showed him where all the tools were, how the electrical panel worked, where the water shutoff was. All the things my father had shown me, that I'd shown James. Ben ran his hand along his father's old workbench. I'm going to fix this place up, make it nice again. Your grandpa would like that. We worked until the sun went down, cleaning, organizing, planning. When we finally locked up and headed to our trucks, Ben turned to me. Uncle Rob, that thing Diane posted on Facebook, about you being greedy. Yeah? Everyone who actually knew Dad, who actually knows you, they didn't believe it. They knew better. I nodded. Didn't trust myself to say anything. Driving home that night, I thought about Diane, about how she'd looked at my brother's funeral, how quickly she'd pivoted from grief to greed. I didn't hate her. I felt sorry for her, actually, because she'd had 15 years with James, 15 years with a good man, and she'd somehow missed the most important thing about him, that he valued people over property, relationships over revenue. She'd looked at that workshop and seen $600,000. I looked at it and saw my father's hands, covered in grease, teaching me to change oil when I was 12. I saw James and me, 16 and 14, sneaking beers from Dad's fridge and working on his Mustang until midnight. I saw memories that no realtor could appraise, no lawyer could divide. The documents I'd found, the quitclaim deed, the canceled check, they proved I owned the building. But they didn't prove why it mattered. That was something Diane would never understand. A week later, I got an email from Christine. Thought you'd want to know Diane's lawyer filed a withdrawal with the court. It's officially closed. I forwarded the email to Ben with a single line. It's over. Building's safe. He responded with a thumbs up and a beer emoji. That weekend, I drove to the cemetery. First time since the funeral. James's grave already had a headstone. Diane must have ordered it fast. Granite, expensive looking. James Aaron Mitchell, beloved husband and father. No mention of brother. I stood there for a while, hands in my pockets, trying to figure out what to say. I kept the shop, I finally said out loud. Felt stupid talking to a headstone, but I kept going. Gave it to Ben. He's gonna fix it up, use it for his construction business. Dad would have liked that. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves on the maple tree overhead. Diane's gone. Backed off the claim. I don't think we'll hear from her again. A car drove past on the cemetery road, slow and respectful. I'm sorry I wasn't there more. At the end. I mean, I should have visited more when you were in the hospital. Should have said. I stopped. Wiped my eyes. Anyway, the shop's taken care of. That's what you wanted, right? For someone to take care of it. I stayed another 10 minutes, then drove home. Life moved on. Ben started using the workshop, brought in some of his crew to help renovate. They added insulation, fixed the roof, repainted the exterior. The building started to look alive again. I stopped by one afternoon and found Ben and 3 of his buddies working on framing out a new office space. You're really doing it, I said. Got a 5-year plan, Ben said, grinning. He showed me blueprints on his phone. Gonna turn half of it into a workspace, rent out the other half to other contractors. Cover the property taxes, make a little profit. Your dad would be proud. Yeah, Ben said quietly. I think he would. I think about that day sometimes. About how close I came to losing the workshop. Not because I didn't have the legal right to it, the documents proved that, but because I almost didn't fight. When Diane first made her claim, part of me wanted to just give in, sell the building, take my half, walk away. It would have been easier. No lawyers, no conflict, no Facebook posts calling me greedy. But easy isn't always right. My father built that building with his hands, raised 2 sons in its shadow, taught us that work matters, that craftsmanship matters, that the things we build outlast us. James understood that. Even when he sold me his half, even when he needed the money, he trusted me to preserve what Dad had created. And I'll be damned if I was going to let someone who didn't understand that someone who saw dollar signs where we saw legacy tear it down for a quick sale. People think inheritance is about money, about who gets what when someone dies. But it's not. It's about stewardship. It's about taking what the people before you built and protecting it, nurturing it, passing it on. Diane wanted to cash out. I wanted to keep building. In the end, the law sided with me. The documents were clear. But even if they weren't, even if it had gone to court, I'd have fought. Because some things are worth fighting for. Not because they're valuable. Because they're irreplaceable. I'm 64 years old. My brother's gone. My wife's gone. My father's gone. All I have left are memories and the things they built. And I'll be damned if I let anyone take those away.